For weeks, I've been working to find out what this policy shift means for the future of the EV industry here in Indiana. Local and state energy and transportation officials tell me they don't know how long the Trump administration's funding freeze will last, but I can tell you dozens of EV charging projects, many planned in underserved and rural communities in our area, are affected. Construction at the GM Samsung battery plant at New Carlisle is just weeks away from moving into the fast lane. 22 Investigates learned work on the plant's foundation is happening now. GM expects to begin steel deliveries next month.
They've told us could be upwards of 40 trucks a day of steel from April all the way to the end of the year.
But the county is watching closely for potential impacts from a political 1-2 punch. Governor Braun's property tax cuts and President Trump's tariffs on steel and aluminum and shifting federal policies about EV incentives and planning.
We think we're in a really good position. Again, we've got a good partner in GM that has positioned itself well to do well in the EV battery space and the electric car space.
Shalio tells me he remains confident in GM's continued investment in New Carlisle. It's hard to ignore the Trump administration pumping the brakes on federal funding for EV charging networks. The reality is that access and widespread charging is a major roadblock, especially in Indiana.
A lot of people are interested in EVs. They're fun, they're great technology, but they're put off. They have a concern or confusion about charging and charging access.
22 Investigates learned efforts to bring more EV chargers to more places no longer on the fast track.
The Michiana Area Council of Governments executive director told me while they wait on guidance, we're being advised not to incur costs from our federal partners. MACOG received $4.2 million in federal grants for 30 Level 2 EV charging stations. Efforts to get them operating now on hold.
18 of the locations were in areas around South Bend, including parks and rec centers and underserved areas on the city's west side, downtown Elkhart and Goshen. 14 of the locations were in small towns and rural areas: Argus, Bremen, Culver, Plymouth and Marshall County, Bristol, Middlebury and Elkhart County, Syracuse, Winona Lake and Warsaw and Kosciuszko County, and New Carlisle, North Liberty, Bendix Woods, and Walkerton in St. Joe County.
I do have to acknowledge, it's discouraging not to have a big federal play in building the backbone of charging infrastructure. I mean, certainly there's going to be an impact to that, but I don't think, we're going to grind to a halt here.
But the small delay could potentially be a big blow to consumer confidence, ultimately affecting EV demand. Right now, 3% of the 7 million registered vehicles on Indiana's roads are electric. Energy experts say at-home charging with incentives to cut installation and usage costs is enough to meet most EV owners' needs.
But there's much more to be done. And absent a federal effort, it will fall more to states and utilities and the private sector to fill that gap.
22 Investigates obtained this map from MACOG's infrastructure grant documents that show the widespread Level 2 charging gaps locally. Outside higher populated areas in South Bend and several charging stations in Warsaw and Plymouth, there are what MACOG calls charging deserts along major highways US 31, 30, and 6.
Potential shutdown of some of these things, it just brings more doubts to us as consumers. And, if there's not going to be charging infrastructure and I want to drive down to Evansville, how much will that impact my travel?
More charging stations lead to more drivers lead to more production and investment. GM CEO made this point announcing the joint venture with Samsung. While the funding freeze is not the end of the road for electric vehicles, EV growth and the New Carlisle plant's success are all connected to charging access. So where is Shalio's focus? He told me developing a workforce with GM, making sure the trades locally and regionally are ready, and making sure that there's enough housing for the hundreds of workers.
Thanks for watching. Here's another story you may like, and subscribe to the WSBT 22 YouTube channel.